Well, I'm Hélène Farrar. We're at my studio in Manchester, and I am an artist and art educator. This room in particular is sort of my showroom, sort of a lounge room, and then I have two predominantly teaching spaces. This is a very busy space in most years and most time. Usually here at the studio is I have 5 classes here a week. 3 of them are for school-aged kids. I have 2 adult options. I have a watercolor class, and I also do an evening session, which is sort of an open studio, and I also open that to older teenagers who are independent learners. It's a great space, so I have lots of great books in this room and in the other studio, so if there's any subject that we want more information on, it's easy to pull it off the shelf. And I have a lending library, so people can even borrow my books, which is kind of fun. I've always done art. I am a painter, mostly in encaustic and in watercolor. I was introduced to it. There was some shows in Portland where my studio was. My studio mate, who was right next to me, we were in this big shared space, was melting beeswax and painting beeswax on these ceramic spheres she had casted. And so the smell was just like, I was like, what are you doing? I was like, I gotta try that. And then I got pregnant, and so it wasn't really a good time to be turning on smelling things. As soon as my daughter was born, and I think she was like 4 months old, I took a crash course. I've been doing it ever since. So encaustics is an ancient medium. It goes back to the Egyptians. They used it as part of their funerary practices. 3 ingredients: it's beeswax that's been melted, damar resin crystal, and pigment. Encaustic means to burn in. So every layer of wax needs to be connected to the one previous. If you spill a candle onto the table, most often you can just pop it off, right? Well, the same thing with encaustic. If you put a layer of wax down and you don't fuse or connect it to the one previous, it will also lift. You need to melt it in. It's very similar to watercolor in the sense, like, you could call this area a bloom. You know, one color will mingle next to the one previous, and that happens in the painting process. And then I have a process where I carve into the wax. So these are some of my tools right here. Some of them are traditional wax carving tools, and some of them are less traditional, like a fork. I'm interested in things that I'm truly connected to. This is a new piece. It's actually, the painting is done. I still have to do the painting around the side. I used for a source for this painting a walk I had taken in Rockland, actually, of these houses that were kind of packed in, and I was thinking about how there's so much disconnect. We think we're connected right now in the universe by, you know, technology, but really there's a lot of disconnect. And so I was thinking about how the metaphor of all these buildings that were compressed together, yet no one's actually connecting. These pieces are relating to actually connection again, but the concept exploring about how we all have our own stories to tell, our own internal dialogues that we're dealing with, how patterns and fragments in our lives, sort of like a quilt, are what tells our story. And I'm hoping that my work, you know, can say something about my relationship to the Maine landscape and the history of landscape painting in Maine. This is from the Katahdin paintings that I'm working on from being up at Baxter. You have to get it warm before you put wax on it. Hot doesn't like to go on cold, so I'm just I'm just warming it up. And it really works well with something that has a lot of atmosphere, you know. And Katahdin has a lot of atmosphere. Lighter or less opaque colors, some paint falls back and some comes forward. So like if you put a white down, you think it's on the surface. They mingle differently depending, and so once you start to understand that, then you can play off of it. It's just a wild thing. You have to be open to things just happening.